Welcome back everybody, Eric's UK here with another vid, carrying on my Pathfinder campaign. We've had our Christmas break and last weekend we got the next session. We were down 2 people, but up 1. I shall explain. One of the regular guys was away at the time visiting family overseas, and one of the other guys, because we play in a shop, even though it's closed, it's not a games shop, we still have to wear masks because of COVID regulations. And because he's a frequent smoker and he gets up and he goes outside into the cold and back into the warm, he didn't want to be sitting there with his glasses misting up all night, so he decided not to come down. The rest of us who sat there in the warm and didn't smoke had no problems. The plus one was a friend of ours who used to play D&D and Pathfinder with us, and has recently moved back to town. So he asked if there was any games going. I said, well, come down and join us. So if he decides to stay, which I think he will, that will make it a 6-player group, which I'm quite happy with. So if you've been following this particular story, you'll know that where we finished off last time, so let's just make a little bit of room here. They were investigating this weird cult of the primordials, and this had led them to an old manor house in the centre of the city of Darakeen, called the Chateau d'Eon, or the House of Ages, where the cult had basically been based and had been driven out or arrested and what have you, and it's been abandoned for a number of years. They had an unfortunate incident at the end of the last session where they surprised a group of rogues who were looking to see if there's anything worth nicking, basically, and the party shifter tore one of them in half, literally, in a rather shocking display of violence and brutality, thinking they were sort of like equivalent to the rest of the party when they are actually like first level. So they basically told them at the beginning of this session, right, op it, go, bugger off. But they left the bisected remains of their friend behind. So they checked the various doors and decided to head off down one particular avenue of the house, which led into the kind of servants area. They bypassed some treasure and other collectibles and things like that, which I thought was a little bit odd, because, you know, normally adventurers and role players search every room and every nook and cranny, and they just kind of I found a little bit odd. They found a few bits and bobs, but it didn't seem overly searchy. While they were doing this, one of the party hears something from the entrance hall, and when he goes back, half of the dead rogue is missing, and there's a bloody streak leading towards a door, which, when the party come to investigate, they realise leads outside into some sort of courtyard or something. They realise 2 of the doors lead out here, so they basically tie rope around the handles and together so that nothing can open the doors again. They don't, you know, whatever it is, they want to leave it alone. Which I thought, again, very odd. This isn't adventurers. Adventurers would go out there and beat the snot out of it, and, you know, but fair enough. So they search through this part of the house. They don't really find anything until they reach the kitchens, where they are set upon by some oozy thing that was sat in the bottom of a bowl. Kind of just like a little general encounter with a grey ooze or something like that, I forget. Mostly the house is empty. The big bad of the upper floor is actually what's sat out in the courtyard, which they completely ignored. So it was like, okay, fine, if you don't go out there, then you don't get the treasure it's guarding. But but eventually they search through the upper floor, leaving the courtyard alone, and they do find a hidden chamber off of the ballroom, oddly, and a tunnel leading down to some sort of cavern complex by the looks of it. There's a lot of exploration of the house and a fair bit of role playing, which was nice for everyone back in. The new guy, I should point out, he's playing a half orc fighter or barbarian fighter, I think. I basically had him be sound asleep in one of the bedrooms. Basically, he'd got himself completely tanked in a tavern and wandered this way and found an old house and basically fell asleep in it, quite drunk, and that's how they sort of met up. Because otherwise the guy is just going to be sat there at the table going, well, when am I getting to play? Anyway, so they descend down into this well, it doesn't turn out to be a cavern, it seems to be a tunnel that runs under the city, and they reach a large shoreline to a very fast flowing underground river, and all that's here is a boathouse, and there is a boat in there and the necessary tools to look after a said boat. But even with their dark vision, they have trouble seeing either way where the river's flowing, and they can just make out on the other side of the river there's another shore and possibly another boathouse. That's those with dark vision anyway. So none of them can row. So this was quite interesting. Fast flowing river. They try and tie, we assume there's loops on the side of the boat for ropes. So they tie the rope to this, and two of them start trying to row across the river, the others holding said rope. Obviously, not being in any way, shape or form skilled boatmen, the boat starts to be carried off down the river, where they encounter some sort of tentacle monster that tries to pull the boat under and drag them with it. Fails to drag the boat under. It does knock one of the party unconscious, and they spend the rest of the time basically hacking at tentacles until eventually the thing just has enough and it lets go. They drag the boat back to shore and they basically go, Darakeen is on a river, there are boatmen, let's just hire somebody to take us. So they go back up to town, they find a couple of fisherman types and basically give them a shed load of money each, about 20 gold apiece, which is a sizable fortune for a day's, but not even a day's work here. So these two guys are like, yeah, we'll do it, but you've got to promise us we won't die, we're not going to be in any danger. And like, we can't do that, that's why we're giving you all this money. And they manage to convince them that all they've got to do is row them over, stay by the boat, row them back again, and they can go home. And to be fair, they are boatmen, they know what they're doing, I'm not bothered rolling. They can do a couple of trips and they get them over to the other side. They tell the boatmen to stay here, away from the water's edge preferably, in case there's another tentacle monster, while they go and investigate. There is another boathouse, it does contain another boat and tools and things, but they also find this large door in the side of the cliff face. Very ornate lock, and the Slayer just goes twinky, 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 and really good dice rolls, undoes the lock. Yay! And they find themselves in some sort of complex, a small dungeon basically. Either side of them, they've got doors with ornate locks, and ahead of them they have another door which leads into a corridor towards a very large and ornate looking door, but they realise that this corridor is trapped. And if you're not careful, once you get about halfway, a big stone block will drop down basically at the entrance door and prevent you from getting out, and you're stuck. It's several tons, there's no way they're going to lift it with the sort of abilities they have. So they decide to leave that now. They'll come back to it. Two doors either side, they pick one of them. They can unlock it quite easily. It's a small corridor with a similar door on the other side, and they realise it's kind of like an airlock. Only one of these two doors can be opened at a time. So they but you can only fit like 3 people at a squeeze in this corridor at once, 2 preferably. So they have to do this in a couple of trips. The other side, there's a few like sort of like what you might call monks' cells, little basic bedding, nothing special. Somewhere someone could sleep if they were desperate, sort of thing. But they also find a summoning chamber, and the problem they find when they get there is this: whoever was, you know, when this kicked off several years ago, somebody obviously left the circle open, and the party find themselves facing these strange things. They're like Pac-Man, basically. They're little fleshy balls with a huge mouth, no eyes. I based them off of, I think, one of the clip-off creatures in one of the bestiaries, one of the Monster Manual things. Slightly powered up, because I think they were like CR1 or something, and these needed to be CR3. Anyway, these things start popping up out of this portal. They do work out how to shut the portal down. They manage to smack away at the edges of it until the actual lines are damaged, the connection's gone. But these 4 things are floating around trying to attack them. 2 of them, because these are weird, chaosy, whatever they are, like everything else they've faced, they're able to melt the walls, and they start basically tunneling away while the other 2 fight. And they end up being sort of like caught, 2 in the room, 2 in the corridor behind them. These things are quite interesting. Even before I sort of like reskin them and tweak them up. So basically, if they bite you, you erupt. You have to make a save, but if you fail it, you erupt with spines and tentacles and arms and things. And basically, your own body attempts to grapple you. So 2 of the party, I think it was the Orc and I want to say the Slayer, are basically now, where these things have bitten them, are now sort of like sprouting limbs and tentacles, and these things are grabbing hold of them and snatching the weapons away. And it's really cool, descriptive scene. It was really cool. Everyone was really in on it. They did manage to kill these 4 things, but they don't know how can they reverse this weird body warping, flesh crafting bite virus, whatever it is. So they're in a little bit of a bad way, because now effectively they are classed as permanently entangled. Which is going to be interesting when they go back to those poor fishermen or back up to the surface, because people are going to be like, what the hell is it? Are these monsters? Are these what? So I've still got the rest of this dungeon little complex to explore, which I think they'll do in the next session. I've also got to get the other 2 players back in. But I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it at this stage, unless they decide to go back to town before exploring the rest of the dungeon. And that's basically where we wrapped up. It got late at this point, and you know, people had to be up for work next day. So a really good session when we come back after the Christmas break. And it was nice. But it would have been better if everybody had been there, but hopefully next session we can have that. Anyway, that's just where we're up to. I thought I'd do a quick video just to keep everyone up to date and to, you know, keep the post trend going. Any comments or whatever, drop them down below. The camera's being a bit shaky today. I don't really know why, but there you go. Anyway, if you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, guys, take care and good gaming.